Morning everyone and welcome back. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. We're going to do a trip guide for Bobbin Head. So I've started on the water and I'll fill you in on the specifics as we get underway. Bobbin Head is in the Ku-ring-gai Chase National Park on Sydney's North Shore. It's about 30 minutes north of Sydney up the Pacific Highway. There's two ways to get there. The first is up Bobbin Head Road. As a national park, there are toll booths and it costs $12 a day if you don't have a National Parks Pass to park there. The other way to get there is to go up the M1 to Asquith and then turn right. That'll bring you into the park from the other side. You'll come down Ku-ring-gai Chase Road. Both roads meet in the middle at the bridge that goes over Kayaking Creek. Whichever way you come, make sure you watch out for cyclists. There's always a lot on the roads on the weekends and it can be quite a slow trip down to the launch. Once you get down to the bridge, you're looking for the canoe launch area. Bobbin Head's very popular on warm days. There's picnic areas and playgrounds, and also the canoe launch area, which is perfect for beginners. If you're early, you should have no problem getting a park close to the launch. However, on peak days, it can be difficult to get a park if you leave it later. The launch itself can be slippery, and you do want some sort of footwear with you because it can be a little bit hard on the feet. You'll find toilets right near the launch, and most of the buildings you'll see around Bobbin Head were built in the 1930s during the Depression. The area you launch in is suited to beginners, and they do rent paddle boats that you'll find in this space on a warm day. There are oysters though, so it's not really the best spot for a swim. This little creek's called Cockle Creek. It actually goes up quite a way and is a decent paddle. Once you come under the bridge at Bobbin Head, you're into Kayaking Creek. If you turn left, you're going to head up towards Cottage Point and the Hawkesbury, and if you turn right, it takes you down to the end, which is where we'll head after we've been to the waterfall. Behind me is Apple Tree Bay. That's the other launch in this part of Bobbin Head. It's actually a little bit better than the canoe launch area. There's dedicated steps down that let you get in regardless of the tide. There's also a boat ramp here, which means it can get fairly busy on a warm day. Directly across from Apple Tree Bay, you've got this waterfall, which is one of the main things to come and see if you do this paddle. It can vary depending on how much rain there is, so sometimes you can get here and there's nothing, and other times it's great. It's also very tidal. There's a lot of oyster shells on rocks right beneath me, but we've got enough water to get over them. When you get into these shallow sections, there's also a good chance you're going to spot a stingray or two. There's a lot of them about, and the clearness of the water does make it easy to find them. Once you've seen the waterfall, the best thing to do is to head back down towards the launch. You can either go under the bridge and to the end of that creek if the tide's high, or what we're going to do today is go to the end of the main creek. From the Bobbin Head canoe launch up to the waterfall and back is really only about 4 kilometres. In total today we're probably going to travel about 14 going to the end of the creek. This section can be a little bit open and you do need to watch for boats and the wake that they can cause. This whole section is limited to 4 knots, so it's normally fairly safe, but there can be the odd jet ski or large boat that just throws up a lot of water. If you continue heading upstream here, you'll find places like Waratah Bay with its shipwreck, Cottage Point, which has a great little cafe, and Refuge Bay, which was home of a famous commando camp. We'll aim to go there another day. There's also Jerusalem Bay and Yeoman's Bay, which are 2 of the remotest spots on the river. Once you get past the marina, it actually starts to get shallow fairly quickly. It's a beautiful quiet stretch here, so there's not a lot of boat traffic, and you have a lot of options for places to get out when the tide's low. On the left here, this whole side of the peninsula is National Park, which makes it really remote and unspoilt country. The park's open from sunrise to sunset each day, although there's no camping at Bobbin Head or Apple Tree Bay, so you do need to think about this when you're making plans. You also find, even at high tide, you've got some really shallow spots in this river, but there's usually a deep channel that you can follow most of the way, so even if you're here at low tide, you shouldn't run aground. This whole section of the park actually has a lot of Aboriginal engravings, although a lot of them aren't promoted to prevent vandalism. You can actually find some really good trail walks that'll allow you to see some. As you get nearer to the end of the creek, there are a couple of permanent sandbanks, and these make a really good spot to stop for a break. Our group chose to stop here for morning tea, and I took the opportunity to climb up the rocks a little way and try and get a view of the rest of the creek for you. From here you can just about see the end of the creek, and that's where we were going to head next. There's a walking trail on the right here that'll take you back up the hill towards the Bobbin Head Road entrance. And as you get towards the end of the creek, there's a lot of rocks in the water. Depending on the tide they can be obvious, otherwise it can be easy to run into them if you're not careful. The water's also very deep in places. You can see a swing rope here that's used in summer. There's a triangular rock in front here that usually marks the end of the creek, but because of the tide today we got a little bit further. The end of the creek can change fairly quickly depending on the tide. There's a lot of rocks just under the water here, so if you come up, depending on the conditions, you do need to be careful that you don't end up getting tipped out. The one advantage of being up this far is there's not really any oysters on the rocks anymore. Bobbin Head actually got its name from a rock that apparently resembled a man's bobbing head that you could see at high tide. It's still there at the entrance to the marina, although it's been partially covered by the walkway. The walking trail moves away from the creek here, but if you follow it, it'll take you back up into Terry Hills, and I know it's quite a popular trail for people to walk through on the weekends. My friend Paul in front of me here is always up for an adventure in getting through rocks like this. Now, because it's a really high tide today, we've actually gotten a little bit further than we normally would. This is probably not something you get to see very often, but it's about as far as you can practically get up Kayaking Creek. Threading through the rocks here is always a lot of fun, although it is why I normally bring a plastic kayak for this trip. It's not something you want to be doing in a fiberglass or a composite kayak. This whole area is part of the Ku-ring-gai Chase National Park. It was actually Australia's second national park that was established in 1894. The park's made up of 15,000 acres, and Bobbin Head is considered the centrepiece, although you've also got the Basin and West Head as part of it, along with the bays I mentioned earlier. Part of the beauty of this paddle for beginners is that it's really hard to get lost. If you come back and you see the boats, you just need to turn left and you're back where you started. Being an unusually quiet day, we decided to take the opportunity to paddle into the marina and have a look at the boats. The marina is actually a pretty good spot for a feed after you finish paddling. They have a really good menu, and it's one of 3 places down here where you can actually get food, with the others being the Bobbin Inn and the kiosk at Apple Tree Bay. It's also really unusual that this bridge isn't covered in fishermen, so we took the chance to paddle under it. This bridge has been rebuilt several times over the years, the last time being in 2020 when it was damaged by the floods. We've just got back to the launch and the tide's pretty cooperative at the moment, but it can get quite rocky here and there's a lot of oysters, so having some flip-flops, thongs, water shoes, something to keep you from getting cuts on your feet can be quite a good idea. Thanks for watching. If you're planning to visit Bobbin Head, I really hope this video has helped, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out in the comments below. If you're able to like and subscribe as well, it'd really help the channel. I'll see you next time.